I also think it's a way for them to extract more revenue from the tax code. So right now, if you're an independent contractor like me, you're paying state, federal income taxes, and then you also pay a self-employment tax. I can't imagine what it would be if the PRO Act were to be enacted. They would probably find more ways to, they'd obviously maybe replace the self-employment tax with some other tax. I would be paying union dues because that's ideally what they want to do. It's not just simply moving you back to a 9-to-5 job. They want you to be a traditional employee who is forcibly unionized. The PRO Act has different caveats and conditions to it in addition to the ABC test. They want to abolish right to work, which gives people the flexibility to choose whether they want to join a union or not in their workplace. And that should be the option available to workers. If they want to join a union, go for it. If you don't want to join a union, you shouldn't be coerced into it. That's existing law. That's great. And we have to keep that in effect. Yeah. And then it also has the thing, let's say those two prongs are achieved, unions are going to have greater oversight over workplaces. And that's why a lot of businesses, small and big, corporations or not, are very concerned because they think they're more attuned to the needs of their workers, and largely the case they are, instead of unions coming in to dictate the affairs, to extract private information from workers. So if the PRO Act stipulates that if it were to go into effect, employers will be at the behest of union bosses to provide all worker information. The worker is not going to know what information, private information, is going to be dispersed to these union representatives. So it's a huge privacy violation with what they want to put into place too. And there's so many different other components to the law as well. But those three especially stick out as very troubling, very problematic. And so, like I had talked about earlier, people largely choose to not want to unionize because they see that their workers are not happy under those arrangements. There are lots of, obviously, stories about, is Amazon going to ever unionize? Although in the Alabama plant, workers have overwhelmingly rejected attempts to be unionized. In a chicken poultry plant in Delaware, the workers there just voted to get out of the union, which is really interesting. You don't hear those stories being covered much. You do hear often, I think Starbucks had their first unionized shop in Washington State, and they're picketing, things that sort. So certainly there's an appetite for some workers to want to unionize, and they say this is a resurgence of unions because they feel betrayed by corporations or different conglomerates. And that can be debatable. Of course, there are different problems with corporations. I would say it's more so their ideology with what is making them less attractive and kind of straying away from their intentional or their original mission statement, like focus on your business, not on politics, and delivering products. But yeah, there's just so much to extrapolate from this. And like I said, with the trends existing and coming out from reputable sources, Pew Research poll said that most gig workers identify as independent contractors, 68%, 67% versus 28% who say they're traditional employees. Mm-hmm. You just talk to more people. You also see even reports from the Labor Department. Over 500,000 people moved to the freelance economy, especially becoming self-employed since the start of the pandemic. And we now have, I think the number of freelancers stayed constant. It was maybe 59 million, according to Upwork, which is a great authority on tracking gig worker participation, freelance worker participation. But they have talked about more so of more workers looking into this. The Great Resignation, which is a very oft discussed phenomenon of just this mass resignation by workers in different offices, big and small. And people say, well, they're checking out from the workforce entirely. That is partly true. But according to some different surveys out, like I said, from the gig platform called Upwork noted that about 10 million, of those workers who are resigning are potentially exploring options to work in the freelance economy. So that's a silver lining, something to be super embraced or rather readily embraced. And we should welcome that. So even if people are withdrawing themselves from the workforce, I think people forget that they may be looking for other options and maybe finding refuge in the freelance economy.